Okay, so this is our fifth session in our data and industry arc, and we're going to be looking at the retail and e-commerce sector. So for these sessions, we try to follow the same template each time, even though we are looking at different industries. So we'll go through an introduction, a history of the overall industry, and some just key points to kind of building up to where we are today in each industry. Who's who of some key players in whichever given topic we're looking at, adoption for either current practices or practices that may be adopted related to data, and then what's next looks at just a couple of things that might spark some discussion in the time that we have at the end of the session of just kind of where the industry is going or some key points of that in of itself. Okay, so for the overall industry, I understand that retail and e-commerce is just a huge scope, and we did have a finance session before, so there is going to be a little bit of overlap there because we touched on kind of the role that retail plays in overall finance, but this will be kind of more fine-tuned to actual like retail in of itself. A lot of that will be looking at the co-evolution between retail and e-commerce with internet usage. Obviously, we have like brick and mortar. Retail is major, but just with growing digitization, the data element to retail has just become like really significant. And overall, just the interactions between having a physical space and then also having a digital presence, whether it's in the form of a website or actual mobile applications for if it's like an individual store or an individual company that has different products within them for people to be able to interact and either make purchases or just continue certain subscriptions to different products that are offered. And then for kind of a sample of different data and how it relates to retail for either like customer segmentation for different ways that segments of the market can be targeted, or data from different like groups can be used to either develop from the very beginning of the retail and if it's looking at developing a product, or if it's going to people that maybe they're just doing drop shipping, but wanting to target certain segments. And then also just overall price data, that's a major one for if people are working with data in the retail industry. I think that's like a big kind of like hot button thing because it's something we can like easily relate to of making like a choice of one product versus another. And then also just interactions with customer service and how that relates to potential success in different parts of the retail market. And then also just how things have been changing, especially with just growing digitization with how consumer behavior is monitored and how the data that's drawn from that plays into the ways that companies can grow. And I've just got like a stat up here. It's from Statista of just a kind of like, hey, like the market's still growing for the US retail sector, at least in that like part of the market. I'm sure global could have some similar stats as well, but just knowing that with more and more usage of the internet and just growing like mobile apps and things like that, it is still kind of like growing industry that people are expanding in or just growing their own companies in. So for the history, as mentioned before, I tried to put a couple different things here than we touched on in the finance session. And just, I didn't want to have like a huge wall of text here for you, but one of the things that we did talk about in that session was kind of the progression of the use of credit cards and how that different form of payment kind of changed the game for data being collected, and also just the like ease of transactions for different companies and be able to grow in that respect. But for this, I kind of want to focus on a couple different elements. Going like way back to the 1800s for kind of a big like industry thing to happen was the first mail order catalog to be like sent around the United States for the Sears Roebuck and Company. And that kind of took something where you have like one person going in a store just buying a thing and having whatever kind of internal record keeping there might be at an individual store put to a completely different scale of having like a wide range of products being available, or at least having people get additional exposure through that method. So that kind of being an initial event that has morphed into kind of how we interact with the like ridiculous amount of things that play into the retail sector and what we have just like at our fingertips today. Then in the 1950s, the first patent was issued for kind of the preliminary barcode, which later morphing into for like shopkeeping units and having kind of what we know or are familiar with today of being able to go to a store, having something that has a barcode that you can just scan, and then automatically having the data that comes from that go into like customer transactions. And then for like fast forwarding to the 1990s, just with general purveyance of the internet through people having their own personal computers, for that is just major. And for two of kind of like the early interlaced companies with that, for Amazon.com and for also eBay in like the late mid to late like 1990s, of those just being kind of preliminary players in the game of the like digital retail market and how people were pretty much like spending money on the internet. And then for the 2000s, just as another kind of player into the game as well, for PayPal being another way for people to have kind of just an easier interaction between their data from their credit cards and just being able to make purchases. So that kind of just playing into popularizing and also just making the playing field wider for people's reach for how they were interacting with the e-commerce space. And then more recently, just the overall increase in smartphone adoption for people to just be able to buy something on their phone in like 2 seconds, rather than having a barrier of having, maybe someone doesn't have a personal computer, so having like your computer in your pocket for your phone, like that kind of purveyance of just more people having smartphones that are able to have you have your internet browser, or having the specific applications for different companies that have what they offer. And then the quote that I put here just was kind of an overall thought about the just increasing accessibility of the retail and e-commerce space, of having just that kind of instant availability of being able to buy something 24/7, where if it was like back in the 1800s, like good luck getting some weird product that might be from a different country that you can't like travel to and get something just like super specific and then shipped to your house overnight. Like that's a crazy amount of just like development for that in of itself. So then for who's who of just some different areas of the retail and e-commerce sector, I know there are many like retailers in general, but for major retailers for different areas, just to point out, Amazon for like the US and Britain, Alibaba for China, and then Mercado Libre for Brazil are just kind of major just players in the market of having a singular place that people can go and find whatever they're looking for. But then also with the backbone of at least Amazon, even though they have the retail end of things, we've seen, especially in the data space, all of these different data products that they offer. And it's like you have money coming in one way, but they also offer all of these other services that can be integrated in with the people that are vendors for their service. And then also for just the general facilitation of e-commerce, for the way that we search for things and the way that we come across different products for Google and its ad services, and also just, I guess, that hand in hand with search results and how people are finding what they're looking for to purchase. And then for Meta, for different, I feel like we've all had like stories of highly specific ads or things like that coming onto, if it's like Instagram or Facebook or things like that. But just like those, how ad services and all the data that's being collected there are playing into like a feedback loop with people in retail to figure out pretty much how they can make more money. And then also for all of these products that people are buying or things that people are wanting to acquire, we need ways to get them to people. And for just courier services in general, the just breadth of data that is collected and generated, and also just having like tracking for different products in the retail industry for like FedEx, UPS, and then also the United States Postal Service. That's, I feel like, something that has been more heavily integrated in with the retail space, and having people, being able to monitor like where their shipments are and how to get their products more easily. And that kind of playing back into as well, efficiency there could change someone's mind about which vendors they're going to for when they're making purchases. And then also for different software that's offered, that kind of goes hand in hand with the retail sector. Salesforce is a huge one for having a like wide range of different products, that it's having different companies like that instead of having like in-house development of all these different things. There's products out there that can interact with people's life cycles, especially if they don't have like a department of people working with data just specifically. So for Salesforce, and then Shopify for also having another kind of example of something that can help kind of ease the transition between somebody that might be more familiar with like a brick and mortar store, for having just a way to digitize their products and have that easy kind of transition without maybe having the web development or different skills that might have been a barrier before products like that. And then Square being another one for just digitized payments for people, and then the different ways that data can get collected with that. And then for Intuit as well, I feel like bookkeeping and record keeping is so important for businesses, for at least for taxes. Like, you want to be able to make sure that all of your data is in one, not in one place, but have all your data in some format that you can access it if you need it, but then also to be able to follow like county, like state, different tax rules and things like that. If you have to sort through like a pile of papers of your like retail data, that could be a lot more difficult than just being able to grab a number from one of the products that someone might have for their company. And then also just kind of I don't know, it might have been like too like me pushing on things that I enjoy for secondary markets for this, but I think it is important to realize that, at least for like the retail space, that secondary markets in the form of eBay, as mentioned before, being kind of one of the early ones of just having people be able to put whatever weird tags they want and have a very specific thing that someone can use the right like search terms to find. And also just resale for clothing for like Poshmark or Depop, these different ways that kind of taking the search engine optimization, but having it in a way that people can just easily sell something and then not have that tie of like, you don't have to have a business. You can still interact with these things and kind of get your own data from that as well, for I think a lot of the integration with that. And I guess I should mention too, going back to Google, for just the example of Google Analytics, of something where you can just get a dashboard, you can get all these like metrics that could be important to your business in an easy way without you really having to put much into that. And then just for overall regulatory, talking outside the space of, as mentioned before, obviously there's state, like local taxes, the Federal Trade Commission, at least in the United States, that pretty much is an agency that works to benefit the consumer and help out with things like they'll regulate if you post an ad and you have a bunch of like falsities on it that can easily be determined to be like false and misleading or just not kind of up to snuff with what the product you're selling is. That is a kind of body that can come in and put something against retail like operations that are trying to pretty much finagle money out of people, like selling stuff they shouldn't be, or like trying to mislead people in ways that it doesn't give that kind of like fair market competition to different people because people are being misled. So I think that's just kind of putting an emphasis on like how things are presented in the different ways that people interact with them, especially in like the internet or mobile environments. And then I just threw a couple different like data related roles on this. We could like have a huge long list of this as well, but just overall for different data scientists, I think one kind of fun example, because they have a nice like blog about it. Etsy has a really cool like data science blog for different things that they post. So just having kind of like these quote unquote like industry giants having their own data science sectors and kind of seeing like what work they're doing, but a lot of times like they'll also like publicize that, and so it's not like behind closed doors. It's something that you can kind of see like how different companies are working. And also for marketing just in general, like that's a huge part of how people are interacting with the retail space. And then for just machine learning in general and how that's kind of evolved as time goes on with how people are able to interact with their data. And then for supply chain as well, we could have like, I think we've talked about it too for like maybe one of our future sessions, doing something on like supply chain and like logistics. But for the retail space, there's just all these different factors that are so intertwined with something going right. So knowing that maybe one of your main products that you sell is like held up somewhere, but having people to be able to say like, okay, let's pull this other data, find other sources of like where you can get maybe that same product or something similar, where just having that information on hand could be like really helpful for a business. Okay, so then for adoption, so this is going to look at just a couple different areas of the just retail industry for just examples that I thought were kind of interesting for how people are interacting with their data. So just overarching for data collection and management for different people in the retail space, like that in and of itself, for just examples of like when was a purchase made. So using just like time data for who's buying what, where it's happening, like having the access to all this different data to be able to tell trends and things like that can be really important. So just the ways that people are interacting with their own data, and then also just how that's managed. So maybe there's interactions with like trending products or things like that, or maybe there's huge shifts in like consumer behavior or opinion of like maybe a certain product that goes into something that someone's selling is all of a sudden like completely opposed. So you need to kind of shift strategy based on that data. And then for product and market research, kind of playing into that as well for people that are trying to figure out kind of like I said, like trends, like where something's going for the retail or e-commerce industry. That could be really important. And that might come in the form, it might not be in-house data, it might be, hey, there's different trade journals or things like that, but having the like outside industry opinion and being able to adapt maybe the way that people are collecting data based on that. And then supply and inventory data as well, just as mentioned before, overall record keeping and how that's done, but also being able to look ahead and say, hey, like the past 2 months, maybe we've like completely run out of one thing and we need to make sure that we can fulfill enough orders to have a product on the shelf or work with that in a certain way. Also just for forecasting, I feel like that could be applicable pretty much to any industry, but especially with the way that we see different like holiday schedules and things like that. I know we just had like Memorial Day, so like there's different like retail kind of holidays where they'll gear certain sales and things like that, where it can become something where to have enough data in-house to tell what like a company needs to do to be prepared for something like that, or to see maybe what they can expect is super important. And then overall for like A/B testing and experimentation. So I guess another integration that I didn't mention before, but I feel like it's kind of pervasive anyway, for like email advertising or things like that, for people to gather data on like click-through rates, or seeing the whole like empty cart campaigns, or just all these different data points that might be able to point to different like information within a company for how they can adjust, or different things that maybe they can try to have somebody like fully complete a sale for an item. And then just overall search and feature optimization for, as mentioned before, like you can pay to have like your advertisement come to like the top of something, but it would be very nice if you had the right search terms so you could like bypass paying a bunch of money because you just happen to be the one person that has some very specific thing, but you have it like pop up with the right terms anyway. So kind of working with that and seeing like what terms somebody used specifically for them to find like your product, or seeing kind of like how you rank outside of just outright paying for coming up first in like the search results. And then for what's next, these are just general things that like I thought were like kind of fun, but there's like a bunch of cool things that we could like list out for like where e-commerce and just retail in general seems to be going. One that I don't know, somebody had mentioned to me before, for just overall like virtual reality and computer vision developments, for kind of bridging that gap between somebody physically going to a store, and maybe they only have like 5 locations in the country, so you might not have somebody be able to access it. So kind of opening that up to different places that have computer vision, of like, you can see what this couch looks like in your house by like granting us access to your camera. So things like that, where it's once again kind of increasing the accessibility of different spaces, but also having you go through that process and hopefully working with something and not buying something and returning it later, by having that kind of intermediary like VR aspect of it. And then for just the overall supply chain, just for blockchain tracking of exactly like what went into the item that you're buying, or having that very like open book knowledge of how something was produced, and kind of leaning on like the sustainability end of maybe you specifically like want to make sure that something that you're buying is coming from a good source, or it's coming from like some part of the supply chain that wasn't like completely awful. So that just overall open tracking of how something was made and how something is going to eventually turn into a product or get to you making a purchase can be super like important, just to have that transparency. And then also just for general just cloud solutions for storage for different retail. So as I mentioned before, just overall purveyance of smartphones, computers, everything like that, but it's also more data. So instead of having kind of static data that's stored like on the back end for a company, having like different silos of their data, having something in a cloud environment, not only for like the storage, but also for like easy access of being able to work and manage your own data, seems to be super important, or at least kind of where like the future and like the growing retail industry can be something important for companies. So I think, and then our next slide, sorry if I went way too fast. So then we'll open it up for discussion for like any thoughts anyone has, or if there's like any questions or anything like that.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, in the previous slide, you mentioned some examples of the data-related jobs, right? And then,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so I'm wondering, like, if they also hire, so in the retail or e-commerce sectors, do they also hire data analysts, or like for the jobs like marketing analysts or supply chain analysts, will their job responsibilities overlap with some with those for the data analysts?
At least from what I've seen, like poking around on different like companies to kind of see like what they have in their like retail tech spaces. I feel like supply chain analysts and like business analysts, there's a lot of like overlap with straight analyst roles. I feel like the only one, and other people might think differently on this too. I feel like finance analyst is where things can get a little like tricky for retail jobs because that tends to gear more towards like some hard requirements in finance itself. But for the broader like marketing analyst, like business analyst, has I think that like entry point of just having general data experience can get someone a role like that.
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely agreed. And I think one of the really interesting things about the retail sector in general is that similarly to other industries, but I think specifically for retail, every single department will have that data analyst and it will be specific to that department. So with the logistics department and the operations, you'll have those supply chain analysts. With the marketing department, you'll have a huge slew of like ad tech analysts, martech analysts. You'll have people who are doing like consumer life cycle analysis. And then you do get into the more, I wouldn't necessarily, it's difficult to say that they're more technical because it's not that they're more technical in terms of like the technology itself, but they're more technical around the specifics of the industry. So like once you get into a finance analyst or like a legal and regulatory analyst, they're still working with the data of the organization. They're still true data analysts, but you then have to have that specific knowledge around SEC requirements and FTC requirements and like different tax things across different state lines and like can we ship this to this state and can we ship this to that state. So for example, I know that in New York you can do this, but in I think it's like Kentucky and Minnesota and a couple other states, like I can get wine delivered to my house. I can order a box of wine online, it gets delivered to my house. You can't do that in other states. And so that's the type of work that like those regulatory analysts would be doing.
Okay, great. I see. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, so I think it would be good to combine like domain knowledge with the technical skills in data, right?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that for students who are transitioning careers, there is that significant advantage of your domain knowledge. Because there are a lot of really great students coming out of master's programs. They spent their entire college career dedicated to data. But the thing that they're missing out of that is that domain knowledge. Whereas if you're transitioning your career from one thing to data, you have all that background that's really rich in whatever domain you're interested in.
Cool. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Just adding up to what Amanda said. So sorry if I'm pronouncing your name right, Amanda. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so the same thing, Logan. So if you are targeting towards a supply chain analyst or any of the analysts or data analysts towards in the retail industry, so most of the things you are crucial about all the data analysis. So let's say as an analyst, you are responsible to collect, analyze, or interpret data related to supply chain processes. You leverage those data analytics tools and techniques to identify patterns, trends, and areas for improvement within a supply chain. And its supply chain is something which is very diverse, and retail is very diverse right now, because retail is related to your so there are a lot of players in the market. Some are core furniture market, let's say IKEA. They are retailers who are only dealing with the electronic products. They are retailers who are dealing only with the apparels. So there are different players, but to the core, retail is always going to be the same. It always going to be purchase, ship, deliver the product. It's going to be that. On the core, you always create order, you process the order, you ship the order, you deliver the order. So on the core part, retail is going to be the same for all the different things. But yeah, you got to have those domain knowledge, because retail have multiple branches. Retail have inventory management, retail have supply chain, retail has shipping business, retail has for example, let's say if you are someone like Walmart or Best Buy, who are also dealing with different vendors right now, who actually come to your home and do a particular service, let's say Geek Squad service. So you are dealing with a lot of different branches where a lot of different players are also involved. In that case, you got to have all those diverse domain knowledge of the retail. It helps you expand your environment and your space all around.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Enko.
That's one thing to note too that I forgot to mention, just from kind of like the finance end. So different like credit card providers, at least from like the US, like have retail divisions of people that might have, I don't know, cool things that they're doing or jobs that they're offering like within kind of like that subsect of different credit card providers. So that's just like another just thing to note.
It is interesting to see the partnerships between those credit card providers and individual organizations. Like, you might on your credit card see that you have discounts on X, Y, and Z organizations for the coming months, and you get double points for them or something like that. And it's like the focus on the demographics of the individuals who own that specific card versus the demographics of the person that's buying this product, and the way that those retailers and the card companies work together using that shared data across is, I think, becoming similarly to like all of the marketing data and advertising data and like the way that that's being used in streaming marketing posts. I think that more mature participation of those two organizations and the way that they're using their data has started to show like just how specific and personalized the retail experience can be for the online shopper.
In relation to the advertising, I'm getting more and more curious, like the email advertising, and I would think they do studies. Like if you send me an email, maybe even once a week to once a month, I'm going to look at it. I think we all know how we get bombarded. If you send me like 5 emails a day, every day, I'm not even looking at them anymore. But I would think they would do some kind of studies of what that cutoff point is.
Yeah, and there are those consumer life cycle studies and understanding by individual companies. So I used to work for an e-commerce company that did grocery delivery very similarly to like Instacart. And so one of the projects that we worked on was that using data from other customers, we identified how many emails and how many purchases that customer had to make to then become a lifetime customer. And by lifetime, that's relative, but it's like this person, by the time they purchase 4 times, we don't need to send them emails, we don't need to market to them anymore, they're hooked. Whereas like then you have the, okay, after this many emails, this person is disengaged. And I think that again definitely has to do with the demographics of your organization's consumers. So like you might subscribe to a fast fashion brand, and that fast fashion brand is they're marketing to young people, they're marketing to people who may not have like super high incomes, but they are interested in being trendy. They're people who change their looks once every couple of weeks, once every couple of months. And so they're sending a lot of emails and they're getting a lot of posts in, and you're seeing those advertisements at a much higher rate, whereas there may be higher end vendors that are more costly, but they also cater to a demographic that is less interested in being bombarded with emails. And so you may only get 1 email a week from them because they know that you as their consumer, you're not the 20-year-old who grew up on tech and is used to getting 3 emails every 30 seconds. You're someone who is a little bit more curated about the way that you interact with technology and with vendors. And so depending on like who they want to market, I think that very much drives their like marketing analytics.
Mhm.
So I remember
Yeah,
I was
that makes sense. I was just curious because sometimes it seems like you purchase once and then your email box is filled every day.
Yeah, so on the same line, Hillary, so I remember I was working for Best Buy, and we were implementing something on the same line with using Google Cloud Platform. And there was this market research trend, and whenever a customer used to place order from Best Buy, we used to store the email ID, and we used to analyze the trends, that what type of products a particular customer is purchasing all the time. And
Mhm.
we used to keep trend of that, and we used to analyze that. And after that analysis is done, we start start shooting emails to personalized emails to the customers, that hey, you have been shopping this, do you want to also
Mhm.
shop this? Hey, you have purchased this product, do you want to also purchase this product? And I believe the same thing is going on with the social media right now. The same thing which I believe Ashley was talking in the slides also, that whenever you even you do a Google search somewhere of a particular product, immediately you see that ad in your Instagram. So it just
Right.
comes. It's all these things are just going on with the data collection and integration, and the vast and how cloud and all are playing role right now. They give you all type of analytics and the tagged tools where you do the analytics, you do the data storage and management, you analyze those data, you do a whole data analysis and visualizations, you apply machine learning there, and predictive analysis, you predict that okay, this is what this consumer or customer has been purchasing regularly, let's suggest this too. So but saying all of that, I believe now people or all the retailers have started moving away from the emails now, and they have started targeting more toward the social media, because most of the people are more hang toward the social media instead of the
Mhm.
email. And I believe a lot of the things which we are seeing around the social media right now, that's because of that.
Oh, okay. It's interesting.
Based on that too, just from like the data privacy standpoint, I feel like this was probably within the last like 10 years or something, for at least from the email standpoint of having, like, if you don't have an unsubscribe option, like that's a huge like no, but for like the interaction with like social media, there's not, you don't have to get somebody's email, like they're already logged in, so having that kind of like workaround to expose or like have visibility of whatever your company is.
And
You're no
that's a very
longer
I'm sorry,
sorry,
Amanda,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead.
I was just saying you're no longer required to. I mean, with old email marketing campaigns, it was whose email do we have? What email lists can we purchase from what other consolidators? And now it's just you go through, Instagram business and you put your ad up and they will do the analytics for you. They will define, you say, I want to target customers between 18 and 24 that live in these states that have an income of, $50,000 to $100,000. And they do all the analytics for you and they target those customers, and you don't have to do as much as you used to for campaigns, and you don't have to worry about maintaining and managing all of those different emails. It's definitely a less personal experience, and as a vendor, I think you lose that sense of, okay, this specific email clicked on this, I know that this person in the past has shopped for this, so you miss that, but you gain such a wider audience.
I was approx saying the same thing what you just spoke. It's the same thing. It's very interesting what Ashley said, that now is the time where even if you don't give permission to someone to use your email ID, even if you're signing up for Instagram or if you're signing up for a particular social networking website, they do have a clause of sharing your data. And we don't go through all those terms and conditions and all those data privacy statements, but they have a little small clauses of all these things where they do share our trends or our activities around those social media platforms. And even if you are let's say purchasing something, you're actually signing up for all those things. We sometimes don't notice all these things, but I'll go ahead and I'll be very straight and say that data privacy is a myth right now, because that's what is happening. Wherever you sign up, wherever you log in, whenever you're searching something, you're actually till until you're entering your email ID or phone number somewhere, you're actually, those data is getting shared here and there, because all the players are somewhere all the systems are interacting with each other. Your Instagram is interacting with your Amazon is interacting with your Walmart, your Walmart is interacting with your Google search. So everything is connected, and all these systems are interacting with each other.
Yeah, you're spot on. I think one of the things that Ashley, you touched on a little bit, but it used to be, especially as there were fewer, point and click platforms for this, it used to be that only large organizations could take advantage of these types of data analytics and these types of like targeted campaigns and the ability to organize your operational data and supply chain analytics and stuff. Now with the prevalence of IoT devices like Square and payment platforms like Venmo, I think it's really exciting to a certain extent, as much as like consumerist society can be exciting. It's really exciting to see the ability for smaller vendors to have the same capacity to do analytics and to almost be more agile about it and to be more reactive to the data that they're getting, because they are limber as smaller organizations. And to see them be able to use their analytics in ways that they haven't before is exciting.
I'm curious if anybody has know there's any type of online resources for people do market research, like what type of products to sell on which marketplace. Does anyone know of such thing exist?
Yes, there's a lot of them. I don't know off the top of my head, but even if you like the FTC has a good data resource. The SEC would have one. There's like different industry specific data resources. So like the grocery industry has like standardized general SKUs. And so like all of the barcodes for everyone's Dole bananas are all the same. And so you can find those resources online. Yeah, so depending on the industry that you're looking for, you can find a ton of public resources around like products and the different, the different demographics that purchase products and prevalence of products in specific markets and market saturation. And then you can even get a little bit further into it. And I bet Kaggle, which I didn't put the link in there, but Kaggle is free open data sets along with other things. I will put this in the chat. So they would likely have a good amount of data sources available if you just go to the homepage and click on data sets. And then you can search, retail, whatever industry you're interested in, that kind of stuff. So yeah, when it comes to data, which is one of my favorite parts about data, is if you want to find it, it's online. Like you can find data sets for nearly everything. You may find a paywall for a data set, but you know that if that data set exists, the likelihood that they just consolidated from across the web is pretty high. So it might take a little bit more work, but you'll be able to consolidate too. Oh, the New York Stock Exchange, they have a good one too.
I'm finding it's kind of hard to get data from marketplaces like Amazon and like Etsy, such things. Except you can probably get your own data analytics if you're a seller yourself.
Yeah, at least
get that.
Amazon is kind of tricky with that of like you can interact with their API, but if you're not a vendor and you don't have like those connections, I feel like they're pretty like good about keeping that kind of like close to the vest. But there are people that have like web scrapers or things like that. I like don't have any good resources like offhand, but one that I remember seeing, I think it was from Amazon, was something to the effect of just like similar purchases and how things kind of got grouped together from that. But that being something that at some point was scraped. So if I find something like that, though, I'll definitely like post in our like the event like group chat or whatever later on.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, because I know that, these companies, while they collect a lot of data, they're also pretty tight-lipped about it, unfortunately, because that's how they make a lot of their money these days, is by not just collecting and using your data, but making sure that no one else has it. It's kind of like when sports teams recruit someone and then put them on the bench. They just want other teams to not have them. Okay, it's 8:00. Happy to stay on and keep chatting if people are interested, if people have more questions. Otherwise, we are planning on another session for sometime in July. I'm not sure when, but it will be on a Tuesday. Probably looking to do something around data in nonprofits or data in like policy creation, something like that. So keep that in mind for next month, and we'll make sure to get the event up on Meetup soon.
Sure. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thank you. This was interesting.
This is interesting. Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night,
You too.
everyone. Take care. Bye.